freshman and Liberty Scholar at Drexel University. Ladies and gentlemen, please, please, please join me in welcoming once again to this State of Black Learning Virtual 2020, our good and dear friends, 8 Black Hands, joined by Noor Bowman. Welcome, y'all. Glad to have you back. I'm gonna go mute on the mic and go dark on the screen and turn it over to you, brothers. Love y'all, man.
Appreciate you.
What's up, y'all?
Good to be here. Hey, man. How's
How you
everything?
doing?
Good, doing well.
Man. How you doing, Chris? You are muted right now, but again,
I am
always
not
saying something
muted.
great.
Live from the library with the fancy shirts. I'm in the house, blow the whistle, make it happen.
That's what's up. How you doing, Miss Nora?
I'm good. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, and Ray is in. I think he just needs to be elevated to the panelist piece, but I'm gonna let y'all. I'm like, you in? You good?
You just gonna leave him in the closet? Like, no, let
yeah.
Yo, free my mans.
So yeah, so anything I can do to help with that, but Chris and Reef, I'll throw it to you all. I'm gonna text him now. So Miss Stevens, if you could let him in, we should be good.
Cool. Well, I mean, again, it's good to be here. We were in person last year, and I'm glad that they're continuing these conversations, just as they promised last year, to really continuing to focus on the state of Black education. You know, I don't know if much has changed in a positive way since last year when we got together, and in many aspects has gone the other direction, fast, like almost downhill. And so, you know, we have even more work to do, and this idea of, you know, a sense of urgency by any means necessary to ensure that we are pushing and in this new context. I'm glad to have a student with us, Noor Bowman, transitioning from high school to college, and she's been a really strong voice in Philly and beyond. And looking forward to hearing her as well.
You know, for me, I just want to say that I love the premise of the show, by any means necessary. We are in a unique time. This is a special time. We are in a reset moment. We are not going back to school like normal. This is a different year. And the majority population and the dominant populations are making moves for their kids. They are deciding what they're going to do. Are we going to have pods? Are we going to hire our own teachers? They are making decisions. They're using their resources. They're coming together. And here we are. Sharif, you know better than I am, who's probably the first person that ever said, when America gets a cold, the Black community catches the flu, right? Mm-hmm. So here we are in a COVID moment where America is rushing to do things for their kids. And what's the Black version of catching the flu, you know, during this particular time when it comes to education? So what exactly do we mean by all means necessary? I mean, we like to talk in this bold language, right? Like, you know, by any means necessary, right? What are we going to do? What are we really doing for our 8 million Black children so that they don't lose any learning in this coming school year? So that our families that have the least resources aren't left out on their own. What are we doing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Who you want to start with?
Anybody, because you know, you got the Oakland connection, we got a Philly connection, we got an Upper East Coast aggressive connection with Ray, and we got me in the heartland. So we got different ideas of what could be happening for our people.
Well, Reef, why don't you start, since you got your student with us, man? Why don't we start there?
Yeah. Well, Noor, you want to, you know, what do you think should be happening? You know, particularly with this pandemic, you're transitioning to college. You'd love to hear, like, what is Drexel thinking? But then overall, what should, you know, you've spoken in the past about the disparities between, you know, different education opportunities in a so-called normal setting. But I don't think we've ever been in a normal setting. I think, you know, Black families have always been, you know, the system has said, I declare war on you all a long time ago, and that's just continued. So, you know, love just to start off with you, Noor. As far as what are your thoughts and what should be happening?
Yeah, I don't have a definite solution. Obviously, I'm not an educator, but from a student perspective, I have a brother who goes to Bodine, so he's in the Philadelphia school district, and I just graduated from Baldwin, so prestigious private school on the main line, right? And what they can do during a pandemic is way different than what Bodine can do, right? The classes are already ridiculously small. Zoom education is not ideal, right? But it's so much easier to teach 10 kids on Zoom versus 80 kids on Zoom. And I could easily see that with my brother. And I think in a time like this, it's so obvious that as a Black student, you're making a sacrifice for your education no matter what, right? And so I think parents are sort of stuck in this dilemma. Do I put my kid in a cyber school? Do I try to homeschool them? Or do I trust the school district to have like 80 kids on a Zoom platform, right? That's what my parents are going through right now. And then there's this issue of, okay, or do you try to invest in a private school and send your kids there, right? Where they're going to be uncomfortable and they're going to be the only kid, right? And then you may send them, let's say the pandemic isn't here, and you send them to another school where they're not the only, right? Will they be sacrificing a certain level or quality of education for choosing the comfort of being with people who look like them? So I think this just made it more apparent to me and my family that no matter the situation, pandemic or no pandemic, you're making an education for your sacrifice. I mean, you're making a sacrifice for your education. So I don't have any solutions, but I think it's definitely rough.
That's a great analysis of the situation, though, told through a real story, a real family's actually story. And you could probably multiply that millions of times now. Other families having to make those decisions right now.
Yeah, and just to give additional context, Bodine, where Noor's brother goes, like it's a magnet school, like it's small. It's you have to, there's criteria for you to be accepted there, and even amongst that, like what we would say, elite school in the Philadelphia traditional public system, it is still frayed with inequities, right? Like it still can't compare to other situations.
The champ is here.
Ali, Boombaye. Ali, Boombaye. Ali, Boombaye. Yo, I love that Congo vibe, right? Come on, let's bring it.
We was on track to have a decent discussion. Now look what done happened.
It all, whoever's listening, it all goes down from here. So I hope you enjoyed the first 12 minutes,
Ray, I got your back, Ray. You know what I'm saying? I got your back, bro. And your background is hilarious.
Noor, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, man. I heard some of you, and I can't wait. You're going to Drexel, right?
Yes.
I'm excited for you. Yeah. Okay. All right, my bad. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted y'all to know the champ was here.
You totally meant to interrupt. What are you talking about? That's exactly what you meant. What are you talking about?
But what do you want to pick up? So Noor, I appreciate that breakdown that you had as well. I mean, and as we I think you were kind of rounding that out, Sharif, when Ray was joining.
Yeah, no, I was just talking about like Bodine. So we're, you figure, and we talked about this before, where there's sometimes Black people think that, the system declared war, but they think like, hey, my access, the opportunities that I got individually as a family, maybe that, shields me from that. And so we have people in the community. I gave a story about the two doctors who were raising Black kids, and the kids right now are angry with them because they ended up going, as Noor talked about, they ended up going to a school. They were the only Black child, and that green armor, the dollars, that armor was not only see-through, but it wasn't bulletproof. And they were just receiving all kinds of hell for being, Black, talented, outspoken, and in an environment where that they weren't prepared for. Or as Noor said, do you say, well, I want you to be in the all Black space, knowing that the system has said, hey, we're going to underfund you, not even underfund, we're not going to fund you deliberately, and for generations, right? And that sucks. So when we say by all means necessary, that's the context, that's the playing ground that we have to raise our children in and think about our children's future and our grandchildren's future. Whatever education, a child gets, it impacts their grandchildren's trajectory.
So what about you, Chris? By any means necessary, right? Like, what's that what's this moment we in? What's that mean to you?
I love that we have a student here that can break it down the way that it was broken down already. There are no easy answers. So this is a time when black belt parenting kicks in. Like, God throws things at you sometimes and it tests you. It tests how much like you can solve problems quickly and you can defend your children and you can find the resources that you need. This is just a test. It's a challenge and it's a test right now. And the first thing that we need to do, I think, is be able to take stock of what's even available, because districts aren't doing a very good job of allowing parents to even know whether it's going to be fully in person, hybrid, whether they're going to be offering, if you do the total distance learning, if they're going to offer additional researches. We have to scour that out on our own. So for me, like, any means necessary right now means forgetting making it about schools, making it 110% about a plan. What's my plan for child A? What's my plan for child B? And that puts a different onus of the power, because now you're not just at the beck and call of a kind of school. Should we do charter? Should we do online? Should we do district? Should we do magnet? That's all old now. That's all old news. The news right now is about, like, do we all have access, first of all? Because the World Wide Web right now, we've been talking for 25 years about a digital divide. Now it come home to roost, right? Now we know who can and can't even get on to the resources that we have. So by any means necessary, to me right now, in its simplest form, means that the parent takes over and acts as ruthlessly as they possibly can to create a personalized, customized plan for their kid. Maybe it involves a school, maybe involves the libraries. I don't think it should be out of the question for people to think that you don't even have to be in school this year, that it would be possible to use some of the free solutions and sources. If you got it like this, if you can have a person at home, you might even be able to do it without a school in this year. This is going to be a weird year. There's no getting around that fact. It's going to be a weird year. Make it as unweird as you possibly can for your kids, because they're going to suffer the social consequences, the mental health consequences, their interruptions to their routine, if we don't set a different kind of routine for them as their parents and their elders and their community supporters. One last word about this too. What increases the level of difficulty for us right now is that the extended family that would normally be helping out in these cases are shattered from each other. Like, there are more people having to quarantine. So your normal support systems that you would have had in your own families are a little bit out of touch right now for many families. And that's an additional level of challenge for our folks.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt.
That's what's up, man. I think, this whole thing around by any means necessary, I think we got to, whatever your frame is of thinking about that, I think we need to expand it. It's not just a cool saying from like Malcolm X or the movie or the book or whatever the case is, right? What that means is right now, you have to start taking power back. And when you hit power hits back, and it hits back hard. It's not, power doesn't just lay down and let you have it, right? So we talking about improving education for Black kids in this country by any means necessary. That means it's looking at their power analysis. Well, they use unions. Well, you should see a bunch of parent unions popping up. You should see a bunch of student unions popping up, because that's an apparatus of power that gets used and wielded, right? You're going to have people that say, well, not right now, not during COVID. And it's like, well, actually, we've wasted an opportunity in a moment. If the people, I know there are people struggling and whatnot, but there's enough of us in our community that can be thinking about the education of Black people. Education should be significantly different in ways that favor us when things go back to without COVID, if that even is a thing, right? So I think that, you can't be saying by any means necessary in one voice and then get squeamish right in the next sentence, right? So that looks like Black people coming together and building their own pods, or that looks like us pushing TV stations to play educational things that can kind of help move things along, whether you have, Wi-Fi or not. That looks like using everything at our disposal. As much as teachers threaten to strike and do things like that, which is their right, and that's fine, I think parents and students should have that same type of power and wield that card when they see fit as well, because you represent the cash that goes into districts, right? And there are a lot of districts, there's a lot of schools, whatever system it is, that's afraid right now, because it's like, wait, if these people realize they don't have to do things the way that we've always done it to be in the same space, then that changes and that interrupts power. So I just wanted to just start off my first comment by saying, if we having a conference where the theme is by any means necessary, we can't get afraid when people are like, well, okay, well, let's look at this thing different. Let's actually do it. And so I'm really glad that we got a student here. I'm glad that you kicked us off, Noor. And Ray, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on our opening topic. I know you were just coming in. We were just kind of riffing on the theme around by any means necessary as it relates to education for Black kids.
Yeah. So the theme is amazing, man. It had me thinking all week in terms of like how to prepare for this and like, you know, just how to, you know, how the hands is going to bring it. But one of the things that I want to touch upon is, you know, this is different for people that have access, and, you know, people that have access are able to think outside of the box in terms of like the things that they can do in order to provide a quality education for their kids. I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about everybody else that doesn't fall into that category. I'm worried about the people that are that are mandatory workers that don't have that extended family the way Chris talked about, people that don't have, you know, that, all right, let me stay home with this person ability. Let me stay home with my child ability. That's who I'm worried about. And you know, saying that, you know, this is going to be a weird year. Absolutely is going to be a weird year. But we all know, according to research, that, you know, a lot of our kids fall behind very easily coming into school. And so if they're not reading on grade level by the third grade, then like many of their trajectories in terms of the rest of their life is kind of doomed. So I don't want to look at this as this being a murky year for them. I want to do everything that I can in order to ensure that they're getting the level of education that they can get, because I don't want them to fall further behind. Because if they fall further behind, then, and speaking about what Reese said, like, you know, if you're going to school now for your grandkids, then their grandkids are doomed if this is just one of those wait years for people that can't do that. And then also for the people that have access or whatever, like there's going to be a lot of supplementary things that are going to have to happen in education, meaning that, you know, there's going to be a lot of things that I'm going to have to do as a father with my kids that is going to make me be not only the educator for the students at my school, but then also the educator for my kids as well. You know, so like they're only going to get but so much. And so I have to come up with a detailed plan, and parents should also come up with a detailed plan as to like what they're going to do on the weekends, what they're going to do in their free time in order to supplement the education that these kids are not getting. But thanks for thinking about me, Charles. The champ is here.
Yep, he was here before you got here, bro.
For sure.
I mean, so Chris, just building on that though, I mean, where do you want to take it? So like, just for the folks at this conference, that thank y'all for having us back. We love coming here because y'all have some real conversations. So let's give these people a show, man. What is it that they want us to? What should we be tackling, fellas, and Miss Noor?
Well, I think, you know, so like, let's start a little bit from where we left off last year, right? Y'all remember the show last year, do you?
Oh,
do you?
I don't remember last week.
I
don't remember last week.
It was an eventful show last year. We wrote about it and had lots of stuff that came out of it. But man, like, listen, it was beautiful because we had students there. We got to see real people. We had Black educators in the room, and we had lots of educators that were like trying to figure out what their role is in helping students and helping the community, as pertains to us getting over these things like race and the hurdles that we have around Black education or whatnot. So I would throw it out to some of y'all, like right now, especially, you know, that have had direct work with school districts and others. Like, if you are an educator right now who is trying to think through what's your role in making sure that justice prevails as we have this turmoil, what can you be doing that's extra? Like, what's your role in all of this to be the woke educator, or the educator who's going to make things as much as you possibly can stay on track for a marginalized community that's been behind forever? What do you do now? Last year was a different story. This year, now what does that educator do?
I'll jump in. I mean, first for us, like, I'm in New York, so I'm in upstate. I'm on Long Island. And so the numbers for us, like looking at the science and believing in the science, right? Because, you know, we have a person that's in the highest office in the land that does not believe in the science of COVID-19 and thinks that it's going to go away tomorrow. You know, so it's not going away. And this is something that we 100% have to deal with. I just read an article today that states that 75% of the 75% of the contact tracing for youth that get COVID are Black and brown kids, right? So like this is affecting us at abnormal rates, and so we have to be smart about this. And so, you know, CDC gives us guidelines. New York State Department of Education has also given us guidelines. But even with all those guidelines, you still got to be smart, right? And so for us, you know, we took K-5 and we turned it into a hybrid program. So we got an A-day, B-day schedule, which means that, you know, on A days, you'll have a group of kids. On B days, you'll have a different group of kids. And then that Wednesday, using that entire Wednesday to sanitize, right? To make sure that, you know, we're coming in, cleaning up, and then also do the cleanup on the weekend in order to make sure that, you know, we're being as safe as possible. But then one thing that I don't see these districts doing, like, you know, I've seen some really dope plans, but I have not really heard the voices of the kids. Those are the people that are on the front lines, because not only the teachers on the front lines, but the kids are on the front lines too, because I just talked about the abysmal rate in which we're contracting this disease in terms of, you know, being Black and brown. And so talking to these kids, getting them in a mental state to put their lives on the line, because that's essentially what they're doing. And then also just talking with parents, because, like, you know, in African-American communities, a lot of these kids are being raised not by their parents. They're being raised by their grandparents. And so, you know, grandparents fall into, you know, the category to where, you know, they can die from contracting this disease. So we got to be extremely smart and thoughtful in terms of how we approach this. Anybody that's telling you other than that, you need to run as quick as possible away from them. And administrators that are not getting teacher buy-in, you need to run away from them too.
So listen to the science, pay attention to the rules, and the systems and other people need to be providing supports to people that are guardians. It's not just parents that have kids right now. Actually, it's a lot of different types of family structures. I want to put a clip out, or a clip, not a clip. I want to put out just a notice, like if you have questions, use the question and answer feature. We will take questions as we go, and there is a open feature in Zoom right now that you can put questions in and we will answer them. So please do that. So Charles, when you listen to what Ray was just saying, you know, like, listen to the science. Let's make sure that we get supports for people that aren't just parents, but also, you know, guardians or whatnot. Is there anything else that you think that educators could be doing to go above and beyond the call of duty right now? We're not just teaching by Zoom. What else can you do?
Absolutely. I think that, and I think it's something that can help build sustainability for them, and like make them some money, and we be able to put stuff back into our community. Listen, people are paying a lot of money for tutors right now. If you are a Black educator and you're worried about this moment, like, there's lesson plans, get with some of your colleagues, like, and offer those services. And I know people are going to say, well, you shouldn't do these things in a pandemic. Listen, people with money are spending a lot of money right now on tutors. And what I said you should do is, if you and y'all got that good, is if you as good as you think you are, right? Start a little company right now where you are, some of these folks that got means, charge them and let them pay, and then take some of that supplemented, you know, resources, and you can give some of that to families that can't afford the same type of pods or the same type of tutors or whatever the case is. Again, like, we come from a culture of people that educated and taught people how to read when it was a threat to their life. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to downplay COVID at all. Like, it's a very scary thing. And I know people who have been really impacted by it. I know folks that have been really impacted by it. But I think also in this moment, again, by any means necessary, I don't see anything wrong with you building out a system that allows you to continue educating people in a safe way, making some money, and using other people's money to make sure that our people that might not be able to afford those same resources are able to get it. I think this is the time to think outside the box. And I think, you know, I brought up that story about what we come from, just because you might be afraid, you might be confused, you might not be able to see the end goal of any of this stuff, but you got to take that first leap, and you got to take that first step. And also, as Chris likes to point out, We always talk about what we would have did during slavery, or how I couldn't have been no slave, or I ain't my ancestors, you'll catch these hands, or whatever. And then look, the Lord done blessed you with a historic moment that you can put up or shut up. Like, this is gonna be a moment that people gonna analyze for decades after this is over, you know? And so what would the story be about you as an educator, especially a Black educator at this time?
I love this point, Charles. Dr. Cole. The reason I love this point so much is because Black people and the Black community has one area of business completely monopolized, and we don't study it enough. The idea of a micro business is actually it's almost universally a Black enterprise in the United States. Like, we have hundreds of thousands of micro businesses. So when you talk about, you might, when you say to educators, form yourself a little business right now, might seem more daunting to some people that you're telling them to run out and get an LLC and spend all the time with the IRS. No. Like, there is a way right now to put your goods online, to start shopping your lesson plans and making sure they're available. There are families like mine and others that are in the market right now for Black created lesson plans for home. There's a Black Homeschooling Association and network. It isn't about the daunting idea of having to start a big business. You know, you're gonna make money on a small level, and you're gonna be helpful. So I love this point. Sharif, brother El-Mekki, you know, when you hear all of this, we're telling people trust the science, provide additional supports. We're telling educators to share what you know, to start networks and get involved. You have done this from a different perspective in helping teachers with videos online and professional development. Is there anything you think we could be using in that infrastructure to help train teachers to be more supportive and more helpful right now?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think tying this into, you know, by any means necessary, is this idea of, you know, when Malcolm said that, sometimes people just think, you know, they see it and it's on a t-shirt with him looking out the window with his M1 or whatever, you know, and they look at it like, oh, by any means necessary to defend that house. When he was given that speech, he was talking about protecting Black families, protecting, you know, Black community. And it's not just physical when we're talking about protection, right? We're talking about the emotional protection, protecting a Black child's intellect, their creativity, their self-identity, like all of that, right? And I think, you know, we can't say that, as Cole said, we can't say that, and as my mom says, like, don't come up here being mealy-mouthed, right? Don't say that in one way, and then the other way, you're like, well, I'm going to send my child, I'm wearing that by any means necessary t-shirt, and I'm sending my child in the wolf's den. That's represented so often by the educational ecosystem, right? And I'm what the rah-rah, but then, you know, nothing of substance, right? And so I think this is another chance of, as you said, you know, flipping the table. The table has been flipped over for us. How are we going to reset it, right? And so this idea of race, class, and privilege, how are people looking, the people that we are sending our kids in, whether, you know, and it's going to be non-traditional, right? But still, who's in front of them? Who's educating? Is it going to be like the white guy in San Diego that's teaching special needs kids without a shirt on? You know, or is it going to be some other kind of
Stop?
Yo, man, this Joker taught his lesson. You're right. Like, I mean, just craziness. Like, and for him to even be and he's not alone. That's the one that made it to the you know, root.com or whatever, right? Like, it's tons of stuff, and it's again, it's an assault on students. And so how we're looking at it is like, how do we hold people accountable? How do we share? Hey, families, this is what we're training teachers to do and be able to do. And we want it to have a level of transparency where families not like guessing, what do they learn in teacher college? Because you ain't jack. Like, you know, my kid is not learning, but they can actually say, oh, this is actually the pedagogy, the teacher moves that should be happening, the decisions that teachers should be making. And not just teachers. You know, we use that term, but we're talking about educators. If you're
everybody,
in school, exactly, all of them.
You know, what I think is interesting about this point is Malcolm also said only a damn fool turns his kids over to his enemy and expects them to be educated, right? And here we are, they have given us our kids back, and we're like, oh my God, oh no, hell, they're giving us our kids back, right? And it's kind of like there might be a silver lining in a piece of that. Not to, as Charles said, let's not underplay COVID. Like, we have a national pandemic that's killing people, upsetting economies. People are going out of work. There might be an eviction wave coming soon, a mortgage foreclosure wave coming soon, displacement, all that. So let's not underplay it. But when it just comes to like, do you rise to the moment? The Black mind is being put back into the hands of Black parents because the government is telling you we can't help you right now, or the help that we're going to give you is going to be insufficient, just so you know. So what do you make of that moment? Nor, when you hear all of this, does this sound at all like practical and reasonable to like the real deal on the ground? Does this sound reasonable?
Or is it just a bunch of old guys,
bunch of old heads talking, right?
Talking trash.
Yeah, like one very good-looking dude and three other old heads just talking trash.
Thank you. I'm not always introduced like that. I appreciate you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I feel you.
So, Nora, what do you think? Does this sound practical?
I think it's practical in a sense, and again, for some people, I don't know. I mean, like, you know, prior to going to Baldwin, I was homeschooled. So, you know, yeah, I feel like homeschool is definitely winning in this moment, right? And so for a while, I was doing the self-paced thing. So that was definitely hard to manage. My mom was teaching me everything, and we would have like cooking classes. And then I joined, this woman from New Jersey had a homeschool co-op, and we would go to so many different places throughout the city in Philly for free or like for a really cheap price. And I would just learn so much about everything, right? And that was such a great opportunity for me. And so coming from a homeschooling lens, I think it is possible. But again, a parent has to be there to facilitate the transportation and to get these kids to different places. So I think that it's feasible, but again, for someone who has the privilege to be home. And with that being said, like you said, we think that the government always has to educate us. I feel like I'm very blessed to have had so many educational opportunities that came from my community, right? That came from people delivering books to my house and saying, hey, you're going to make yourself a Black library, right? Like my Black history didn't come from a school, it came from my house. And I think that's a big expectation to make every parent do that, right? Sometimes we want parents to educate children, but parents didn't get that adequate education, right? Parents might not know, you know, how to teach math, how to teach chemistry. They might not know much about Black history themselves. So how are they going to then pull all those resources together for their children, right? So it's possible, but I think I just don't know. And I guess this is where you guys will come in on how to reach some of those people who don't have all the tools necessary.
When you said, I think you said the word collaborative or cooperative, how did that work? Like, what was how was that organized with other families?
Homeschooling?
Yeah, the homeschooling.
Yeah, so,
how'd that work?
Yes, my mom just found a lady on Facebook, and she would sort of be the mastermind of everything. And she would like reach out to different places and jobs and just host like trips and places for us. So it was just in the school day, right? So it was basically a school trip, except it was just maybe like a group of 10 kids. We were at different ages from, you know, all part of the area. And we would just go and we'd learn about the, you know, water system here in Philadelphia. We'd go to the Urban Outfitters headquarters and learn what it takes to, you know, lead an amazing like clothing company, right? Out of the box things, right? We'd go to a museum and learn about art. And that's what it was. It was parents coming together. Again, like you said, those micro businesses, that's what it was, right? You know, you pay a little bit of money and you go to these amazing experiences and your parents dropped you off. And I think that's more realistic because now I think about it, some of those things my mom didn't go to, right? She trusted this woman to sort of watch me, right? And so I think for those people who can't do it, if they have that one educator who's willing to, you know, make a sacrifice or commitment for the greater good, then perhaps this is possible.
That actually, fellas, sounds like an amazing possibility. Like, not everybody has to know everything. You can have a master planner, a person who's kind of like a tour guide, a person who takes care of this part or that part. Yvonne Sabo says, do you have forums that parents can access as a resource that give supplemental information to support their children's education during this time? I think, which ties into a little bit of what Nor was just saying. Do you all, as educators, people in the community, people working with students, have you seen access to forums where you get to share information with parents who are looking to supplement right now?
Well, Sharif put his website up.
Well, I put two things. Yeah, I put Kaya's website, reconstruction.us, where they're hiring right now college students to provide tutoring on a variety of subjects.
This is reconstruction.us.
Reconstruction.us. And so people, I really encourage Black community to sign up, you know, and you know, in their mailing list, and they'll get more information about that. At the center, we're going to continue with our high school programming. we just finished a literacy boot camp, phonics boot camp for grades 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And we're looking to continue doing that in some kind of way. But our main programming during the year is with high school students who are interested in activism, and they're taught by some professors and people from our staff. Dr. Greg Carr, head of Black Studies Department at Howard University, is one of our professors on our on call, who every week he's teaching a course. And this year's and this is for high school students, this year's grounding text is The Lost Education of Horace Tate. So that's the text he will be teaching to our high school students who are part of our program at the center. So I think there are a lot of just different ways to continue to try to address that. And I love the idea, what Nora said. Now, also, Nora, I want to, also ask you to share, because we talk about out of school time a lot on the 8 Black Hands and like what it should look like. Now, all of it's out of school time. And we've been, last week or Sunday, we talked about this idea of apprenticeships, internships, these other things, not just going learning, but actually going to learn a particular skill. And you've had those opportunities as well, which I think is part of education. And, we always talk about school isn't education in itself. School is a building. But education, and as you described it, is where you learn, what you learn, how you learn, and what you can do with it afterwards.
So what's the question, bro?
What was it?
Yeah,
There was no
can you
question.
share?
There's absolutely no question. There's no question.
Good. Well, Nora, can you talk about those internships and apprenticeships or those other opportunities outside of the homeschooling, but you had other learning opportunities outside of that? Can you talk about that? The old guys didn't hear. They got cotton in their ears.
Or you just answered the question as you gave it to her.
That's true.
Nora, just say exactly what I said.
When you rewind it, you'll see it. No, but she's going to give you specific things that she actually did.
So you even saying right now, Nora, help us out here. What is he talking about?
Help him out, Nora. Help him out.
Yeah. So I'm blessed to have had many extracurricular activities. And I think a big part of it is reshaping your understanding of education. My mom's the kind of person where she will pull me out of school to do something that she thinks is better, right? There are moments where I had to study for a math test. My mom's like, nope, you're going to go listen to this speaker, right? No, you're going to go listen to Henry Louis Gates at Penn on a school night, right? There are moments like that. And a big part of it is just using your resources and just asking. Some of the amazing opportunities I have just been cold calling or asking people. One of the amazing opportunities I had was to intern with Lorraine Ballard Morrill, and I got to interview Brother Sharif, and I literally just DM'd Lorraine Ballard Morrill, and I was like, hey, I'm a high school student. I would love an internship. First I said I'd love to shadow you, right? I shadowed with her, and then I was like, hey, I also would love to be your intern. Is this an opportunity? And so I think I really would encourage young people to not be afraid to ask for certain resources and opportunities. There was another amazing organization that I was a part of called Uniquely You, Organization for Black Girls. And that has been an amazing resource for me in creating a strong network here in Philadelphia, and also having a lot of resources to be in, sort of not being a part of panels, but to sit and listen to other successful Black women. And then of course, Brother El-Mekki, he's also invited me to speak at a lot of things. And so I think most of my opportunities came from a strong community of people. I don't know if that answers your question. I don't know what you really.
You never even asked the question, so
no,
it was fine.
I want to say this.
Nora.
I want to say, Nora, that the answer was better than the question. No, your answer was much better than the question, and it was very insightful and informative. But Charles, Dr. Cole, Ankrum, would you guys hear this? Are there opportunities for people, especially people that want to do more with what you're doing, to have access to you, to shadow you, to maybe intern for you? Like this idea that she could just pick up the phone and text somebody and be like, "Hey, can I come shadow you?" and whatnot, and she gets this amazing opportunity. Is that something that's available for you all?
You want to take it first, Reef, or Ray, or whatever?
Sure, Reef. I'm impressed. I've heard somebody on this farm not use the word John, once.
Ah.
So that is
Nor, it's
very
still
important.
time. It's still
Yep,
time, Nor.
Yep. Nope. There's no time for that. There's no time for that. That time has passed. That time has
So,
passed. You are
man, so-
educated now.
So I mean, the hands, man. We talk about this all the time about needing an intern. So yeah, I'm definitely sure that we can make some space, for a talented individual that's helping us to navigate some things. But in terms of my own personal usage, I think I found myself an intern last night. I called my son. I was late for my show libations.
That sounds terrible. That sounds terrible in so
And I was
many
like,
ways.
and I was like, bro, I need you to hook up my board. I need you. And I walked him through like all of these things that he needed to
Sounds
do
like domestic child labor.
in order to get prepared for the show. And then I'm like, yo, you got to stand in for me for the first 5 minutes. And so first 5 minutes of the show, my son was me. And so, yeah, I think I found an intern.
I was wondering how you got that bump in viewership. Now that explains it. Junior was in the house.
I was like, oh yeah, because I was flipping and I saw it. I was like, oh, it got the 8 Black Hands background. I was like, oh, now it makes sense though. But the young boy did a good job, so that's what's up, man. I hope he continues to do stuff. I would say this, as capacity issues there, whatever, I would, I would love to have somebody shadow and intern or whatnot. But here's the message that I would give to people, and this is for you, Noor, but also we got a bunch of educators that's on the line. Your generation is also blessed because you get to also take internships and take mentors. And what I mean by that is you got access to anybody that you kind of admire for the most part that's out doing good work right now. You have a thing in your pocket that you can go on and follow everything that they've done, right? So I got this advice from Gary Vaynerchuk, who does a lot of work in the business side of things, but he's just like, look, I can't be a mentor to everybody, but I document all of my stuff. If you really want to know how I'm working and what I do, look at my results, look at what I did, and then construct your plan by backwards mapping from where I'm at and what you see. So I think that you should definitely be doing exactly what Noor did, reaching out, cold calling, ask. The worst they can do is say no. And you can just collect a whole bunch of other mentors. So if you want Chris Stewart or Ray Ankrum to be your to be your mentor, both of these brothers put out a lot of stuff. There's a lot of content that spans years, right? Where you can actually see their growth, you can see their mistakes, you can see their wins, and kind of have things broken down. It's really just about what you want to find. So you can use it to make TikTok videos, which is cool, or you can use it to say, hey, Oprah's my mentor, you know what I'm saying? Or Michelle Obama's my mentor, right? So I think, and that's just around building an agency of folks who might not be able to, go to Penn and be able to hear, whoever speak or whatnot, right? Like you can escape in some other ways and get the support you need.
Yeah, I just want to speak on that. Now it's the pandemic, so things are different. Obviously, Penn is all remote. But some of the amazing speaking opportunities they have at Penn are open to the public and free. And a lot of people don't know that. They think they're isolated for only students. And so I think one thing parents can do is again, maybe there's some online platforms now of the universities that are offering free lectures. I would go to them all the time. And I'd always be like the only person not from Penn, but it's free, right? You don't have to sign up or nothing. You just have to show up. And so I think that's another great resource.
People from Penn don't even go.
No, what I think
all colleges have these resources, and now it's online. So take advantage.
This is a good call out, though. I think all of us have thought in some way, shape, or another how to, have people have access to us and how much we can help. I heard Charles say something about capacity. I have a personal commitment with the next generation just to feed as many opportunities as I can to people that I, who are coming up behind me, that I can feed them, but there's no organized way in which I do it. So I think in listening to what you just said, I do remember having a friend a few years ago. She came into a CEO role and she had too many requests for lunch. Can I have breakfast with you? Can I have lunch? Can I have coffee? And what she started doing was hosting a group situation where everybody could have access to her for a breakfast or something like that. And it became a smarter way to use her time and give more people access. So I love your call out because it could mean that we could be, especially now, we could be thinking more systemically about how we get our help out to people. And the 8 Black Hands, we have these different platforms. We are growing, we are evolving, and we are thinking through as a mind trust how we actually get more information to people. So thank you for the challenge on that part. Charles, for young people, you work a lot with young people who are coming up, and they are
Absolutely.
going to be the next leaders and the next group or whatnot. Are they going to be interrupted right now by everything that's going on, when you work through energy converters, or do you see, opportunities for them to be leading right now too?
I think it's all about perspective. I think if we're looking at things from a basic level, what we do every day, yeah, they're going to be interrupted. But what I've seen from my fellows, I've seen them OD on like creativity and self-learning though, right? Like, so we had a young person, Jaden did the show with you all, who just wanted to learn how to produce and run his own shows. He didn't want to just be a guest on 8 Black Hands. He wanted to have his own 8 Black Hands, and he did it, and he learned it. And, and he brings on students that's actually, and the good thing is he's getting into students in a way that we couldn't do or that other people can't do because they're his friends. And it's just a different level of insight there. So I think that, if you can't be expansive and have a growth mindset at the moment, right, and kind of adjust to the moment, it's going to be really tough. It's going to be tough for everybody. But this is an opportunity to go and learn more about the things you want to learn about. This is an opportunity to be creative. This is an opportunity to invest in yourself. And I'll just end this by saying, I know you asked about young people. I want to end this by saying we're talking to a bunch of educators. A lot of professions in the last decade, especially with like these last 2 years, they've had a moment. Nurses had a moment. Social workers have had a moment. And I think right now, for educators, like this is your moment of like leadership for this country, right? And it's like, JFK had one of the best lines that we've gotten away from. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Ask not what Black people can do for you, but what you can do for Black people. Like in this moment, this is your Fannie Lou Hamer moment. And I use her because she didn't have a lot of resources, didn't have all the fancy book smarts or whatever the case, from Mississippi, super disrespected every time she gave a talk. But for 9 years, she was in pocket and she was organizing and getting things done. And if she can do it with the resources, with the lack of resources she had, everybody that's watching has some type of resource right now. I don't know your life or your situation, but you watching on some device with some type of Wi-Fi, that means that you got more than enough resources to fulfill your Fannie Lou Hamer moment. So I want to hear from you all afterwards, like how are y'all gonna respond to this moment for our kids?
I think this is a great point to capture in this one way, what you just said, Charles, around what's your platform. Like you have more resources at your disposal right now. If you wanted to be a badass teacher right now, you could have a platform. You could have by tomorrow, within the next 24 hours, you could have a whole platform because of the tools that are available that didn't exist 10 years ago, didn't exist 20 years ago. And if you wanted to amplify your ability to get out worksheets, to get out kind of easy lessons that people are going to need. So many parents right now are just hungry and thirsty for anything that looks like something they can use with their kids, and teachers have it. You guys spend all your days and nights thinking about it. So again, questions, if you put questions in the Q&A, we will get to them. So so put any questions you have as we talk into the Q&A there. Ray, what's going on, man? What are you thinking as you listen to all of this?
Bro, I mean, I had a lot of thoughts, but one of the thoughts that's most pressing for me is just this idea of just teachers, their moment, and just like how they're responding to virtual learning. Like you got some teachers that are just dead, like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to work, period, right? And so, I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about the kids in terms of like what they're getting out of a teacher that just doesn't want to do anything. Right. And one of the things about virtual learning that people don't understand is that it's more difficult to be a good teacher and do virtual learning than it is for you to be a good teacher and be in person, because virtual learning, you actually have to teach. Right. Because you have to have 25 kids or however many kids you have. Like you have to have their attention. You have to say things that are engaging to them. You have to like manage them in a way that captivates them to make them want to give more to you, because if not, then you're going to just sit there and you're going to talk for however long that period is, right? And so it's a perfect way for you to seed your power to those students, let them take over and let them become the masters of their own fate. But you gotta want to be able to do it. Like I don't see people like making that effort in order to be really good at virtual learning. It's one of those things to where, all right, you're gonna get professional development from your school, but you're only gonna be as good as you want to be. So
Is that a
there
different
are
skill set, Ray? Is that like a different, like the classroom teachers, are they going to be ready to teach remotely?
so you could be ready. You would have been ready if you took this whole time that we had off to learn and master and like do all the things that people that want to be ready are doing. Like I seen I saw who's our guy who comes on your show. He was doing a Bitmoji. It took him like a day and a half in order to get it perfect. But
Jay
like,
Wamstead.
Was it
Wamstead,
Jay?
yeah. But that's the kind of effort that you're gonna
Yeah.
need in order to be really good in order to engage these kids. Because if you're boring, then you're gonna resort to, all right, well, this kid has on this kind of shirt and I can't teach them because they have on this kind of shirt, and and like all of these other things that people want. Well, I want this kid suspended. I didn't see his eye pupils, and like all these other things
Man,
that are
some
gonna
people are
happen.
But they're talking about a dress code for
Man.
online. They're literally talking about a dress code for online. You
But
can't
bruh,
be in your
it's not
pajamas.
just them.
So
It's not just them though. Listen, I stopped by a shoemaker the other day. It was parents like saying, "No, my kid gonna be in uniform because I want to create this structure in the house." And I was like, "All right, I feel you. Whatever, it's their parent choice." But some people are like dying to police black kids online. They're just like, "Oh, this is like a scanner." I gotta just see.
yeah.
I got a whole dashboard. They like, man, Big Brother watching. I'm watching. Like they some folks
They got
are
a
taking it
pupil
to another
tracker.
level. Yeah, man.
Pupil tracker, seeing where your eyes are.
Open your eyes larger, boy. Open your eyes.
Nor when you hear all this.
Go ahead. I just saw we had 2 questions. I don't know how much time we had left, but
We got a little
I ain't
time.
looked
So
this on.
Nora,
Okay.
I want to ask you about this structure thing, because when you are a homeschooled student, your structure situation is different. And we're all of a sudden going to have a whole bunch of black children in the country who come out of these overstructured situations, who are going to have freedom like they've never had before. What would you say to like them and their parents about still learning, even though you don't have to have the same overstructured situation?
It's hard. I'm going to be honest. I feel like I had such a unique educational experience and I learned so much about the world. And I know a lot of things about random things. But as far as the most like structured brick and mortar education, right? Like prior to high school, like I wasn't doing too good in math, right? Part of my homeschooling experience was an online homeschooling experience, right? So was I always paying attention if my mom wasn't there? I'm going to be honest, I wasn't, right? But for things that I was really passionate about when I was in person doing these amazing extracurriculars, was I paying attention? 110%, right? So I feel like online, there's no guarantee. No matter how engaged a teacher is going to be, a student can easily look away. There's other tabs on the computer. You see it all the time. At Baldwin, we have laptops in every class, and you can see online shopping, Netflix watching, all of this while there's a physical person in front of you.
That's
right?
That's what Ray's doing right now. That's what Ray buying tennis shoes right now as you talking.
Absolutely. I'm not buying tennis shoes, but I should be watching season 4 of Gossip Girls.
See, he told you. So basically, you're saying there is no safeguard that it's going to be all of the teacher. They're not going to keep you 100% on track. But if it's stuff that the student cares about and is passionate about, they might stick more with.
They might stick more with it. Yes.
Yeah. We have a question from Mr. Hodge. I believe it's Mr. Hodge, saying, can you discuss more about the moment for Black parents? How might we support them and also amplify the work they've been putting in during this time?
Are we being paused? Did you read the comments? A pause for a sponsor? What's happening?
No. You must have just had something happen on your side, brother.
See, you on the Foot Locker. You on the Foot Locker.
And it's Miss Hodge. It's Miss Hodge, Chris.
Is it Miss Hodge? Okay, Miss Hodge.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's
I'm
Mallory.
sorry. I do not mean to misgender anybody, but Miss Hodge has a question about how can we support Black parents in this moment. And
then after that, I do think Miss Stevens wants to do a quick pause for a message break. But,
gotcha.
But let's answer Ms. Hodges.
Let's answer this question, y'all.
So I think with regards to Black families, Ms. Hodge, that is an excellent question, and I'm so glad that you asked. I think you got to meet parents where they are. You're going to have a lot of parents that are frontline workers that are not going to be able to be at your back to school night, and that are not going to be able to be at those things that that you require them to be as you look at them through this lens of the middle class. Like, all right, well, this parent doesn't care about their kid because they never show up to anything. Well, God dang it. that parent has to work because that parent has to put food on their kid's table in order to stay above levels of poverty. And so that parent might have 3 to 4 jobs. And so, what about you being unconventional in terms of how you allow that parent to access you? Are you available on a Saturday? Right now, we're about to do a Q&A session on COVID to address parent concerns. And I'm actually doing it on a Saturday because that's a day that I know that parents would definitely be interested in, because it's not their routine Monday through Friday in which they got to go to work.
Yeah.
So, as educators, we got to think outside the box in terms of how we're meeting these parents and allowing them to have access to us and access to education.
Ray is absolutely right.
I'm not trying to see you on a Saturday, bro. But
Ray,
you do your thing.
Ray is absolutely right. They are asking us to.
Yeah. So Carrie Stevens wants to throw us to a message from sponsors.
Thank you, guys. We are going to bring on Annie Martinez from Remake Learning.
Hello, State of Black Learning. It's really good to see you. I'm sad not to be in community with you today as we have in the past several years. Also, Malaron, hi. Sorry I didn't get to hug you as part of our festival in May, but I'm looking forward to the next opportunity. So thanks for carving out some time. Much love to Philadelphia. Spent 10 years living right off of Girard. It has my heart in a very deep place. Also shout out to Muffy Mendoza, to Mika Bowens, Jessica Brown, and the Black Homeschooling Society. We're very graced to have the opportunity to collaborate with them on a small grant this summer. And you're very lucky that you get to hear from Muffy next week. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ani Martinez. I'm the field director for the Remake Learning Network, big champions and supporters of the State of Black Learning for the last 3 years, and very humbled that we get to be a sponsor, even on a humble level, again this year. Just a few things, a few plugs. If you want to learn more, I'll put my contact information in the chat. But we are in the midst of launching Shifting Power with Dean Kinlock and Elise Pinchback Johnson and the amazing team that is working to center the voices and the knowledge of Black and Latin educators here in our region, really using and working in partnership with researchers to think about how we shift power in educational research. We also support about a dozen collective impact entities here in the region. You'll hear from our beloved LaTrenda Sherrill next week. And the one that I want to share with you today is one that Remake Learning is not the anchor organization in, but is very grateful to be able to serve, the Pittsburgh Learning Collaborative. And so we've been working since March. We are now a collaborative and a coalition of just about 100 organizations here in the region, working to ensure that every child in our region has a laptop, that every household has Wi-Fi, really doing a big policy push on that one, holding PPS and others accountable for responsibilities to do these things, and to also ensure that children have a safe space physically to be, and then setting up our parent hotline that is a space for parents to call, ask questions in English and Spanish, and then we have other translator services available. So again, I'm putting my contact information in the chat. Thank you so much for allowing this disruption. It is with great humility and service, and I'm gonna pass the mic back to the folks you're here to hear from today. And if you like my background, D.S. Kinsel by his art, Boom Concepts. Thank you, bye.
Well, thank you for that sponsorship message. Appreciate it, Ms. Martinez. Appreciate the call out to an artist, as an artist and a creative. Shout out to all the people who do art. We had a run-in with an artist last year at this event, and it actually made us better people. It was smart. He actually challenged us right there on the spot, and we had to deal with it. And he was talking about parents, I think it was, last year. So it's funny this comes up again this year, the responsibility of parents is what he was talking about. How might we, Charles, Ray, Sharif, sometimes when you bring up this parent part of things, it gets a little paternalistic. Sometimes on one side, we infantilize parents and say all that they can't do and all that they might need help with. And then we go the other direction and get into that respectability stuff where we make it all about, what they are and aren't doing. It gets paternalistic. What's the middle ground on that? What's the treating them as fully fledged authorities in their child's life, and also recognizing that they need help and support? What's the middle ground there? Anybody?
I mean, for me as a teacher and a principal, my middle ground was to ask questions, to be curious, asking them how, as simple as how would you like to be communicated with, so if you're eating dinner at 7 and I'm calling and you're not answering, I'm not walking away with these assumptions like, oh, they never pick up the phone, right? Just when's the best time to communicate with you? How would you like to be communicated? Is it email? Is it text? Is it a phone call? Is it a note pinned to your kids, book bag? Like whatever. Just I think
that ain't it. I'll tell you that one right there.
Listen. People had all kind of things. Some would say like, "Hey, send a letter, mail a letter. Mail it to my job because my kid gets home before I do, and they go through my mail." Like it was all kind of thing. But that was part of our, just back to school, effort was to ask a series of questions and us doing less talking and more listening.
I love that. As I love when educators would always say it was in your child's backpack. Not understanding the economy of a parent time of like what happens with a backpack. If you don't want me to know something, put it in the backpack. Put it in the backpack because it'll be underneath Skittle wrappers and everything else, followed up in a ball. Charles, were you going to say something?
I was just going to chime in on that, on what you all just said. I think my message for parents and how to treat them with respect and not get them too much or infantilize them or whatnot, like, because we do all those things, Chris, and thanks for calling that out. Parents, because a lot of Black parents on here and a lot of y'all support Black parents, your family and your kids better than we do, better than anybody else. So you got to do what's best for your family and for your kids. All these people that have been telling Black people where to put their kids in the school, where not to put their kids in the school, homeschooling is bad, this is bad, or whatever. As soon as this hit, them people with means and them people that don't look like you did everything that they could for their babies and ain't apologizing and don't give a damn about what you got to say about it. I think that's one. Two, don't give up your power. Like, you are powerful, and don't think that you can't add and do stuff. Like, connect with your friends, share resources, like have conversations. I'll put together like a playlist of just, here go 5 videos of history of Black people before slavery. And then just, if your kids can spend a bunch of time in front of a screen, here goes some YouTube videos they can watch. I mean, but there's a bunch of things that you're using. And then we're doing this in Oakland, and I will bring it up on A Black Hands, but there's a fund that's giving out some money that I'm gonna help with. And I'm trying to just put money directly into the hands of those people, where it's like, look, I don't want these families to have a big old thing to fill out as a fundee or whatever. What ideas are they using? And here's some relief for them. And just let us share those ideas with other people. I think that a lot of this can happen. We talking to almost 100 Black educators here. That's in the game for Black education. Help and be the organizer for them if they need that help, or help be the container, or just listen like Sharif started off with. So I think those are some things, and it starts by echoing your thing, Sharif. Treat these people with respect, and with the understanding that they love their kids and they down to do whatever they need to.
Let me jump in real quick, because Chris, you're the parent advocate. Bro, what are your thoughts? Same question to you.
I mean, like, listen, this is why I'm asking the question, is like the difference between the way people approach parents. On one hand, you do have people that infantilize parents. And when you start talking about what needs to be done, it's a long list of, well, they can't do it because of this and they can't do it because of that. And the more they start stacking up excuses, they're starting to chip away at the responsibility of a moment like right now. I was writing something a day or so ago that I may or may not actually even release, but it was getting around this narrative of how stressed parents are, how bad they have it, or how hard it is for them and all that right now. And I was only trying to chip away at it by saying, that's not going to be helpful though. The narrative that we need right now is that parents need to stand up. They need to be black belt parents, because nobody else is going to save your children right now. The government ain't here for you. Your educators aren't here for you. The unions aren't here for you. Your traditional civil rights organizations, your fraternities and sorors, your Divine Nine, your Greeks, Ankrum, your Greeks, Ankrum. The PhDs ain't here for you. The temple pensionistas ain't here for you. None of these folks are here for you right now. So I can like help you have a pity party about what you can't do right now, and I will be doing nothing for your children by doing that. The only thing I can do right now is pump you up and say, whatever you can do, do it times 10, because all the traditional help systems, all the people that are supposed to be, all the people who make money off of supposedly helping you. The nonprofit industrial complex, that whole group of middle-class people who are paid to lord over the poor, that entire group of people or whatnot, they got nothing for you right now, right? Where is the national meeting of the NAACP and the Urban League and the Divine Nine and Jack and Jill and all these groups right now to come together and put together all their budgets and their degrees and their fancy money and their suits and all that stuff to create some sort of solution for the 8 million right now? Black Americans, honestly, we have said this before in our show, Black Americans are one of the largest GNP, if they were a country, in the world. We are not poor in this country. But at a moment like this, I just called out all these organizations and groups and whatnot that have infrastructure and budgets and people and talent and everything else. We should not be fending for a solution, but we are. So to the parents, I say, it's on you. It's on you. This is game time. This is black belt game time, you know, right now, all you can do, because everybody else is going to tell you what you can't do. And I think it's part of it is because they want a permanent, dependent class of people who depend on the middle class, educated Negroes that are killing us. I'm sorry, but go ahead. You asked me the question. You should have done that. You should have thrown it back to me, but go ahead.
No. I wanted to throw it back to you. It's great that I did. Reef, jump in.
Yeah, I would just say, you know, that meeting with the NAACP and all the other fancy Negroes with the education that's not advancing folk, they are meeting. They're just not meeting how to advance the 8 million. They're meeting about, like, how do we get these charter schools shut down in the midst of all this chaos? They meeting, they're like, how do we get opportunities that people may have been working with before the pandemic? How do we get this shut down so then when we open our eyes again, it's all gone, right? And so we talk about, like, stay woke. We better stay woke in a different and just keep our eyes open, because they are absolutely working to limit your opportunities, limit everybody's opportunities who ain't in their economic stratosphere, their orbit. That's all they really care about, and you can tell. Because if not, I've read about 4 or 5, pandemic, education-related, what people should be thinking about. I'm still waiting for the Jack and Jills and Urban League, the NAACP. Where is it? Like, maybe I missed it. Maybe it's at that secret meeting that you wrote about a couple years ago. But where is that? Like, they should be leading the charge. They should be leading the charge on that. And I don't see that. Absolutely. So I just wanted to second that. Like, it is absolutely insane that so-called civil rights organizations are not showing leadership in this absolutely deathly, both, physical death and intellectual, the capacity to provide intellectual death to our communities. And they're quiet as church mice.
And they should be convening. They should be, like, we have a National Association of Black Educators and of social workers and of CPAs. We have a national Baptist convention, which is one of the biggest Black gatherings in the world, right? Hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, we should not even be talking about this. You said stay woke, though. I just want to, like, put a plug in for woke is past tense, right? I just so we should say remain awake. Remain awake. Stay woke is old. Let me correct your language.
Y'all always
I'm not a woke person. Because I'm just not a woke person. Woke is past tense. A whole different name.
So he was woke. He was woke. It's a past tense thing. So remain awake, people. Just remain awake. Go ahead, Ray.
Ray is trying to pull in our stick.
Jump in, sweetie. What are your thoughts about what we just rattled off?
Yo, and Nora, feel free to tell him, don't call me sweetie. My name is Nora
Bowman.
You know what I mean? Like,
I was about to say,
feel free to
What
check him on his chin. You know what I mean? Like, you from West Philly.
Yeah, I got Joe Biden right here touching
from West
people.
Philly, you know what I'm saying? Like that.
You get mad because I said, all right, you're right, dear.
He out of pocket.
I'm going to mute him right now.
What do I think about the few that aren't stepping back and helping out? Is that the question? Yeah. It's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. I'm just going to throw this in here. I'm not going to say I necessarily agree with it. There was an individual I spoke to recently, and we were talking about the same thing, right? What are schools supposed to do? And this is an adult. And he was saying, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal for Philadelphia School District. He worked at one of the schools, and he said he honestly felt that students weren't learning on average. on a regular day in a regular year, no pandemic, he felt like their education was so subpar to the point where he feels as though they weren't learning. So taking a year off because of a pandemic won't affect the trajectory, right? So I'm not saying I agree with this, but this is a mindset, right, of some people. Imagine how many more people have this mindset of kids not learning. You guys feel like this is like by any means necessary. This is urgent, right? And I argue that it's always been urgent, right? You know, people haven't been learning in the way that they should have been learning for years, right? And now we're having these conversations kind of too late, honestly. And so I think some of those organizations, you know, like the NAACP and so forth, they may also have that view of, oh, they weren't learning anyway. Let's focus on the people who are learning. Let's focus on our kids. And all their kids are going into those amazing institutions that have those small classrooms that are going to go back in September, right? So it's not their issue, right? You know, they're Black, but it's not their, like you said, their socioeconomic issue. So, you know, you guys are passionate about this, and they're not, because so many people don't think that kids are learning, and some of them aren't learning, and they don't care to educate them.
In this John.
No.
Just stop. She did not say that.
I want the record to be the only person who didn't say, I'm gonna keep it up.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a question from Ms. Sabo. It says, how can we support programs like Head Start during this time? So Chris, throwing it to you as a parent advocate, bro, Head Start is definitely the beginning of emerging students into, you know, learning. So what are your thoughts?
I mean, I really appreciate Head Start and always have, for the fact that their parent involvement mandate is very large. Like, so it's a core part of being a successful program. You have to have the parents there with you in Head Start. So to me, I've always felt like that was a good thing, and not just there, but they're doing something material to the program, like reading to kids and participating in a way that other programs don't. So I would hate to see this be an opportunity for right-wing forces to shift any money out of things like Head Start into other things. But I always say this as it's but one program that we should be looking at right now. I think honestly, as political people, we should be talking about the full package for family economic security that families need. And there's some of it that's educational funds. Some of it has to do with their county benefits that are going to be stripped away, or things like their job training programs, or things like, it came up in a discussion that I had yesterday around TANF, even the way that TANF is distributed to families. Like, you can lose your benefits if you don't take a job, or if you're not job searching, you don't turn in your job logs and all that. That needs to be on our radar too. As people don't normally think about TANF, people just think about education. We have a full package of benefits that we need to make sure families have. Like, family economic security is about housing, about income, about education, about training, and all of those things are going to be under attack right now. And states and counties are going to play games with all of them. What I would love to see is for advocates in each of those areas share a table in every city. Share a table in every city where they're coming together and they're having some form of a plan and a strategy for making sure our families don't fall completely off the economic table.
Charles,
so Head Start is one part of that.
Charles, throwing it to you, bro.
Around Head Start?
Yes, sir.
I don't have much to add. I think y'all, support them. I think that it's like
Charles is like, cut it off right now.
Just I don't know if it's one that we all got to spread out on, but show them your support by showing love. You know, ask them what they need. They could probably answer that question better than we can. But I think I think it's a larger sentiment of the question, but yeah.
So what's the largest sentiment to the question? Because I think
the larger one is it makes me think about a few things. When I say we're on our own, at times that includes your own people, that includes from Head Starts or whatever the case is. I think that when you are just very keen and clear of what the reality is, you can make much better decisions as opposed to waiting for specific organizations to get it together. I just went through one of the worst storms that the Midwest has ever seen. And it was old people in my neighborhood waiting for more than 5 days, some of them, for electricity to come back. and they had nothing. They just had to just wait until they bonded together as a community and shared generators and shared resources and made sure that old people were being like taken care of if they needed like, you know, these resources. So I would say my prayers I want Head Start to be great. I want all these things to be great. I would say we got to take this moment to actually get back to our communal roots as Black people, and focus on that group. And then once that group is doing well, then you can kind of focus outward. But this is a time to put your mask on.
Yeah, but yeah, hey, but that speaks to the business opportunity, the pod business opportunity that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Because think about the kids. Think about the amount of kids that are not gonna. Because if you're social distancing, then the amount of kids that would be allowed in a Head Start classroom is not going to be the same. So then you tap into those. I mean, because there's funds that follow kids, and so one of the things that, you know, we're not talking about is, you know, the people that are not going to have the opportunity to go to Head Start. There's funds that follow them to the Head Start that they're not going to. Why not allow them to have the opportunity to now take that funding in order to be able to hire a Black teacher or any kind of teacher that they feel comfortable with, in order to now provide them with an education that they wouldn't receive? Like, that just makes sense.
I think that's a point, and you tapping onto a potential show, and we're gonna open up that box, and we ain't gonna be able to close it, because there's a lot of people that don't think Black people are smart enough or should have the right to that money to make decisions, and many of them people share your hue. So if we're gonna talk about, we always do. We bring up great topics to go into with 15 minutes left. But yeah, that's that. I feel the same way you do, right?
Yeah.
I have a question for like the three of y'all, as a matter of fact, especially though Sharif and Charles being in more urban areas. Charles, you're in Chicago and Oakland. Sharif, you're in Philly. Nor, you're in Philly? Are you in Philly, Nor?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'd be interested in is, like, I live in an area that's very spread out. We're not close, you know, not a lot of people concentrated in a small area. But I wonder about like the social distancing aspect on the mental health of kids that are used to being able to just run free, just go outside, just see their friends, just have access to parks and stuff like that. And just, you know, what's that going to be like in the urban areas where kids are very concentrated and they're social beings? Like, what's gonna be up with the mental health part of that stuff?
Well, some kids are still doing that.
They're still out there right now.
There's some kids that are definitely still, you know, all the basketball courts and parks are not empty.
Really? They're still out there.
Camps, everything with coaches and all. Yep.
They got masks?
No.
What? I'm staying in the rural areas.
Well, and just to add on that, I mean, Oakland can't come outside. The wildfires, Oakland's covered in ash from the wildfires right now. So you need both an N95 mask and a COVID mask.
See, Oakland is just on some Book of Revelations out the Bible stuff right now.
Yo,
like you got wildfires and a pandemic.
Yeah,
so they're still out there. So really, it's not a mental health thing yet, where kids are feeling isolated and alienated.
I mean, I think you have like different. Just the kids in my household, you have, you know, one, she's an extrovert, and she all spring she was like, oh, you know, after they were finished class, she was Zooming with her friends, and the other one's just like, hey, I don't really, you know, I didn't like in person, so let alone seeing you guys on the screen, right? And so I think different children have different needs and all of that kind of stuff. I do think that, again, families, you know, some are making the decision, hey, we are going to the Wissahickon trails every weekend and we're getting out, and others are like, hey, I have to work double shifts every day for the next couple of weeks. I can't. So you know, if you want to go out and play, go out and play, you know, that kind of thing. So I think people are all over the map depending on their specific circumstances as far as like how their kids get access to outdoors and things like that. You know, I told them, like, let's hunker down, let's get some chickens, let's get some honeybees.
Of course you did.
Plant some carrots, and let's not move. Let's just hunker down. You know,
of course, Reef. That's exactly what we did.
What you do.
I would jump in. I would say some stuff is just, you know, again, we in the middle of adapting, and I'm not trying to sound insensitive, but like, adapt or die is like a real thing, and that you know, I think we got to start in truth and kind of work our way from that space. If you got kids that need to get built out in that space or whatnot, then you got to figure out ways to do it. I applaud my local grocery stores that have done some interesting things. They have an early senior hour of like 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. for seniors. and nobody else is allowed in the grocery store during that time, and they wipe everything down and they make sure. And I'm like, that's just something that should continue even after this. You know, I think that these type of moments breed innovation. So I don't have all the answers, but there are ways like, hey, at this park, this is who kind of is playing at this park or this community or whatever the case is. And listen, man, kids don't like, when I was younger, we would play on our block. We would have football games in the street, like on our block, confined to our people. You know what I mean? I think that a lot of folks are finding their packs and their groups. But yeah, it might be like going out and taking a walk. It might be, you know, getting an X amount of steps. We got things on our wrist that tell us how many steps we've taken. So, I mean, we use that nice fancy technology in the moment that we in, and let's get innovative. And when you find good ideas, share them with other people. Some will work for them and some won't.
So for folks watching, we still have time for a couple of questions. If you have questions, I know that I'm looking in the question box here now. It looks like we have a couple. So from Robert Brown Gartier, for parents of 8 Black Hands, for the parents of 8 Black Hands, are you sending your kids to school? What does school look like? If not, what is your plan for supporting your kids' learning? I could quickly say we're not doing school this year. So the school district drug its feet in telling us what specifically exactly they were going to do. And we were on the hook the whole time. And we're not like these other folks that you guys are talking about who are letting the kids out the house. We don't trust nobody right now because people are not taking COVID very seriously in our area. As a matter of fact, we have a lot of them people that you see online who are not believing it as much as they should be being a thing. So my kids are staying home and we're piecing together an educational program for them. They will probably be doing the remote learning though from the district for a period of time to see if it works. At the end of last year when they did it, it was horrible and the kids hated it. They loved it when we were doing our own program, when we pulled together our own resources, but the moment the district started doing it, they hated it. So I don't know about the rest of y'all. Charles, you don't have no kids, and you like to say that every show. I got no kids. I don't like kids. Anyway, so El-Mekki, what are you doing? And Ankrum, what are you doing? So
thank you, Raymond. Thank you. I never said that part.
He did say that part. Anyways, so Ankrum and El-Mekki.
So Mike, Reef, go ahead, because I know you're doing some amazing things. So go ahead.
No, I don't know if they're amazing. I mean, I wasn't joking with the chickens and the honeybees, and I was not joking about that at all. You know, I got a friend in Maryland. My little brother in Maryland has his already started laying eggs, so he's gonna bring me half his brood. So the kids are gonna, my 6-year-old and 4-year-old, that's what they're gonna learn. That's the part of their chores, new chores. Clean that chicken coop. Do some math and science around that, and journal about it afterwards, right? But then, one of my kids' teachers is actually in overseas, is in Pakistan, and so she'll be doing like this distance learning, with that. But we're not going to school, but we had decided that, and then the district also decided to do full-time online for the near future. My college kid is home for the year, took off. Got a job and just be working and staying close to home. So, so we're keeping it close. Hunkered down it is.
What about you, Ray?
So, I mean, as a superintendent of school, I kind of have to do what I'm asking parents to do. So my daughter, she's younger, so she'll be doing a A-day, B-day schedule. She's excited about it. She misses her friends. She misses her teachers. So that's going to be a real good thing for her in terms of accessing that social piece. But we have so many things put in place in terms of keeping our kids safe. We got masks, we got, teachers with protective gear, like we really are taking this very seriously. And so, I'm gracious to have the opportunity to be able to, have her go back to school, given the fact that the science supports it. We have less than 1% of folks on a daily basis that are contracting COVID. So we're in a good space out on Long Island, and the numbers support, the science supports going back to school. If we were in some place where the science did not support that, then I would have a different approach. In terms of my son, he's going into a senior year, 15-year-old senior, and he honestly likes online school better than he does having to deal with the social pressures and ails of dealing with other high school kids that don't really look like him. And so he may flourish in an online environment 100%. or whatever. But we're gonna leave that up to him to make that choice. But if he does not make the choice to be online, then we're gonna make sure that we put some things in place for this school to adhere to, because I'm gonna have my foot on their neck in terms of the things that they need to do. And then if I gotta have them walk around with a GoPro all day, I'll do it.
Okay, that sounds terrible, but
Yeah, that's
all right.
a little
So
scary. Nor, what are you doing?
Nor.
What are y'all doing this fall?
Yeah, so my younger siblings, the plan is that they'll go to school. Yeah, hopefully they'll go to school. Ahmed's definitely online. Drexel just announced the other day that we're fully online, and I blame it on all those other college kids who decided to be partying it up, because before yesterday we were going, and in the email it clearly said, other students across the country proved that you guys, would not be able to handle it. So yeah, so I'm a little bit upset. A small house, a lot of people. I share my room with 3 girls, so that's going to be interesting. So I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to be successful in college online. So yeah, definitely got to buy a board or something to make the room more of a classroom setting. So definitely a challenge.
There's a question from Ms. Hodge here for you, Nor. It says, how might we support you and show you love during this time, you and other students that are currently starting college during this time? Y'all need gift cards. Y'all need some Target cards. What do y'all need?
GoFundMe so you can get those boards and those college supplies.
Hey, send it my way. So, I'm not sure how people, I don't even know how I can support myself for this moment, right? Like, it literally happened yesterday, and I'm literally just like, yesterday I had a big headache, because you have all these plans, like, a dorm and this, and like all the resources.
Yeah, Husna just moved in last week, I think, or this past weekend. Yeah,
so I don't know. I feel like I'm thrown through a loop, so we'll see.
We need some like national Black exchange bulletin board, for like students in need. I need 2 gift cards to Target, to parents in need, some centralized place where those of us with resources or exchange can help the others. And then we can ask for things ourselves. We just need a supportive infrastructure that we don't have right now. But that's sad, Nora. So you were all prepared to get out there, to move.
Yep, I was excited. Luckily, I didn't buy stuff. I knew as soon as like Penn said that they were doing like the remote no campus, I was like, stop, let's not buy anything. Let's wait till September, because Drexel doesn't start till late September anyway. So I'm happy that I didn't really waste too much money. I only got like a few things, so.
Well, Ms. Hodge sent an email address and said to you, we got you. So just awesome. Email whatever help you need.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Ms. Hodge, I'm going to send you an email too. I need some things.
Write down that email, Nora.
Yeah, that's right. It can't be all about the students. We all need help. We need some things here. I want to go around the horn, y'all. Like, what are some of your thoughts after listening to everything that you've heard today? What are some of your thoughts?
Well, I would say, back to the entrepreneurial spirits that we all must have, families, teachers. One of our teachers just sold his social justice curriculum. That was the 8th grade history curriculum that he had been teaching for years. And people are going to purchase it and use it, and not just in school, not just educators, but their families who are now saying like, hey, I want that curriculum for my own children. We said earlier that this idea that, the table has been flipped. Nobody had planned for it. And so how it gets reset is up to us, and how vigilant might we be? Like, let's not forget that, we were in Pittsburgh last year, most of the attendees may be from Pittsburgh, and that's still, unless, something radically changed, that's still one of the worst cities for Black children, to be raised in. And that was before the pandemic. And so I just wonder, how is it now? And I just encourage everyone, across the state, across the country, to keep that in mind, that, things weren't sweet and nice and cozy, as Nor pointed out, before the pandemic. So our, by any means necessary should not be a new mantra in how you protect your children. But it certainly should be something that we think about deeply as far as what we're actually going to do, because it should never go back to what it was. School does not equate education. let's focus on education.
Charles.
Well, first, man, just want to thank y'all for having us again. Wish we could have been there in person. I love your city. And hold on, Siri thought I was talking to her. I love the city. And man, we still have almost 100 people that came together and said that we care about Black people and Black education. And this whole notion, y'all have this really bold notion of by any means necessary. That means don't be scared away by what ideas can potentially come out of that. This is your moment. Tap into our history. Tap into what Black people did right after slavery. I mean, with no resources, right? Like, they are the reason that you even have free public education in the South, right? And they did that with far less than what we have. So this is our put up or shut up moment. And we know people are hurting. We know this is a very serious time. But again, we have said so many times, I read it all, I ain't my ancestors. You'll catch these hands. You're like, I couldn't have been no slave. I'm going to do this. And I would have did that and let this happen or whatever, right? Well, it happened. God has a sense of humor sometimes. And I think that we can actually come out of this with some real innovations, and things can be much better for Black kids in education than what they were. We can't go back to what was, because it was already a pandemic for Black folks in education before COVID came.
Ray?
Man, I just want to shout out State of Black Learning. Man, just to even think about by any means necessary, you know, and then for us to have the access to be able to do a show on this with over 100 people virtually kicking it with us and rocking with us and vibing with us. I appreciate that. I appreciate you, Noor, for coming through and imparting your wisdom on the fellas. They need you. But at the end of the day, last year we had 45 minutes and then they cut us off stage, rushed us. You remember the cue cards? You got 2 seconds to make your point. This year they gave us an hour and 45 minutes and 2 hours and 30 minutes. I appreciate y'all.
It's like a day.
But on a serious note, I really wanted to be in Pittsburgh this year. Like, Pittsburgh is one of those cities that I really get to vibe out in. And I missed this opportunity. So, you know, regardless if they invite us back next year or not, I'm going to State of Black Learning next year if I got to go as a guest, because I really vibe Pittsburgh. So thank you guys for having us.
And Noor, you know, to wrap us a bit, what do you get from the conversation? What are your big takeaways? What's your wisdom for us? And which one of us is your favorite?
Brother El-Mekki, no doubt. I stay loyal. Come on.
Okay, besides him, who's your number 2?
My biggest takeaway is a phrase coined by a professor at Penn, and it's "we got us," right? We expect so much from the world. We expect so much from government. We expect so much from so many people who really don't have our best interests at heart. But at the end of the day, we always got us, right? You know, you guys are the 8 black hands, right? This is a beautiful metaphor that in this moment needs to be taken literally. And so though, you know, I'm a bit skeptical on how, you know, everything will work in regards to, you know, educating all 8 million, you know, black students. I'm hopeful that we will get through this moment. Like you guys said, you know, after slavery, what was life like? You know, during slavery, what was life like? People were literally reading and getting education during such a horrific moment in their life, right? And so if my ancestors could get an education then, right? If they could have lived through that and brought me here today, you know, how ungrateful will I be to not get an education now, right? When I have the world at my fingertips. So I'm hopeful that, you know, it will be challenging. I know it will, but I'm hopeful that eventually we will get through this. So thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate you guys.
So Noor, that's a perfect place to stop. It relates to something that Charles said earlier, which is there have been times where we have been under distress and have had it worse, and we have had not even near as many resources as we have now. In the years immediately after slavery, we had the largest acquisition of literacy in the history of humankind right out of slavery. So in a situation we're in right now, it's bad. It's tough, but we've never, I think, been more well suited to be able to handle something that's bad and tough, like what we're seeing right now. We can't sugarcoat it. It's a bad situation, but we might also see it as a silver lining. As you said, Nora, several times in this conversation, it wasn't good before, right? So as bad as it is right now, Charles has always told us you're on your own anyways. That's not new news. You told us today that education wasn't doing well before this. That's actually like an accurate assessment. So what are we going to make of this moment? The one thing that I would offer us to say is we really do have all that we need. We're just not connected. Our problem is not that we don't have. It's not that we are broke or that we are poor, we don't have assets. It's just that our assets are not connected. Our networks aren't strong and tight. So if we can do anything that's subversive and revolutionary right now, it's to be making connections. Connect, which is why I love this invitation to be here today. For our host and for all of you watching, this is exactly what we should be doing on a regular basis. We should be connecting in forums like this. And then after a forum like this, we should be hearing from each other. Anything that you heard today that we can connect on, we should be doing that to make it happen. That's all we got right now.
And I put the Twitter in the chat. Please go follow us on Twitter. Stay connected so we can continue these conversations. It's at 8BlackHands1, and our show is every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So you can find us there. So please go follow so we can stay connected.
And we will find other ways. When you meet us there, Charles does something, Ray does something, I do something. We all have different avenues we can take it. We probably got what you need within our network. So God bless all of you and the work that you're doing, and to the people who wake up every morning thinking about how we educate 8 million Black children and get them ready for a ruthless world, a ruthless economy that isn't going to love them in any way, shape, or form the way that we love them. So you are doing the God's work, the Lord's work. I want to throw it back now to Brother Chase to bring some smarts to everything we just talked about, to take us out, man.
You know, first let me thank Noor, and we wish you all the best of luck. Anything that we can do to support you, whether that's individually or collectively, we are in your corner. We want to make sure that you are successful in your ambitions. To the brothers of 8 Black Hands, as usual, man, I wish I could be sitting with you, Charles, at the bar, having a drink, and just congregating with you, brothers, and enjoying your energy and sharing our time together. But thank you very much to our sponsors this afternoon, Remake Learning, to Ani Martinez and LaTrenda Cheryl. Thank you all very much. You know, this is a very disruptive time in our lives, and I think you brothers captured it well. The idea of by any means necessary is rooted in this premise that we must leave open all available tactics to achieve the desired ends. And that could mean up to and including violence, right? And I'm not advocating for that, but I am saying that in order for us to achieve what it is that we desire, and very specifically for me, that's a quality, culturally responsive, top caliber, free learning experience for my child and children that look like him. That's what I want. And that's what I'm willing to do by any means necessary to accomplish and achieve, because of those folks that came before us, that gave their lives, their blood, their sweat, their tears to ensure that we had access to what I just said. And so the question or the caveat is that what we've got to understand as a community is that this by any means necessary is not inclusive of the system. It is driven by the people. It is not a school district that is going to give you anything by any means necessary, because there is resistance that is built into this idea. And so what I am asking our viewers and those of us that are educators to do is a couple of things, 4 things in particular. 1, learn the history of the American educational system. Understand it, understand its roots, and understand how it was not and never will be designed to serve Black children. Number 2, know the law. Understand what the educational legal infrastructure looks like and what it allows us to do. Number 3, infiltrate, disrupt, and dismantle the system. How do you do that? You run for the school board. You speak at public meetings and hearings. You become an educator or an administrator. And most importantly, you vote. And then lastly, be patient, because it's going to take time for the disruption that we need to happen. Now, how does all this happen? Kind of in not an easy form, but in a real form. That's through the charter school experience. That's through parents coming together, whether that's in homeschool scenarios or in charter school scenarios, and taking schools back, taking them. Pennsylvania's charter school law allows for parents to, in essence, claim schools that are failing by a certain number of families that can come together, vote, petition, and they can take those schools and make them charter. And so when I say understand the law, that's what I'm asking you to do, is understand the resources that are at our disposal, that are built into the system now, so that we can save our children. We are going to potentially lose a generation of young people. And I believe it is my
That's the man, Hayden.
he just shared about that Pennsylvania law, that trigger.
Right.
COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO, brother.
They're like, stop it now.
Chase, you went out right when you was about to make your point. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I know.
It's all right. I couldn't wrap it up for you. Go ahead.
Oh my goodness. What
We
happened?
heard
When
you.
did I
We
go
heard
out?
you up
You guys
until
talking
the
about the
trigger
man.
law.
I had smoke, y'all. Look, I had smoke, numbers and everything. All right, man.
We got most of it. It was just up until this last point when you were talking about parent trigger law, basically.
Yeah, man. Parents, you can take these schools back if you want them. You can take them back if you want them. That's the law. So let's use it. Okay, I'm done. Ray, Chris, Brother Sharif, Charles, Nor, thank you all so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week for our final panel in this series of the State of Black Learning Virtual. It'll be led by Muffy Mendoza, and it'll be full of parents who are really going to bring the good smoke.
Thank
Nate,
you all so
it's
much
all
for
you.
having us. This has been
thanks
great.
again.
Thank you for
All
the
right.
opportunity.
Let's go, DJ Nate.